This training video instructs the proper procedures in performing a preventative maintenance on an Electrolux metal body canister system. The session is divided into 5 segments. 1. System hypo test. 2. System overview inspection. 3. Power nozzle inspection and clean. 4. Canister inspection and clean. And 5. Canister and power nozzle assembly. We begin with a hypo test of the system to detect if any electrical problems exist. First, verify the tester is functioning properly by touching the probes together. The light should illuminate, signifying proper function. If not, the tester must be replaced. Now, place a clean bag in the canister and turn the switch on. Touch one probe to the power cord plug and the second probe to the front cover, top trim, body, exhaust plate, and rear cover of the canister. The upper wand, lower wand, and power nozzle base cover are now touched, completing the test. The next step is to inspect the entire system. During this overview inspection, look at the assembly of the different components and for any obvious defects requiring replacement. All wheels and rollers, hose and wand connections, and cord retraction are checked. Now turn the system on. Inspect the power nozzle brush and circuit breaker functions. Next, check all electrical connections, including the electrical hose sheath connections and hose connections at the canister. Also, inspect the suction control valve and the hose carcass for possible air leakage. Finally, disconnect the hose, then open and close the front door to check the automatic shut-off function. We have now completed the system overview and will proceed to the power nozzle inspection. Disassembly begins with the power nozzle. First, remove the cover retaining screws and put the plate aside. Now remove the cover and place it aside as well. Next, remove the motor retaining screws and set the motor and circuit breaker assembly aside. The elbow assembly is removed now, followed by the removal of the brush roll. Examine the brush bristles. If they are flattened, frayed, or crushed, the brush roll should be replaced. The pulley assembly is then examined for a loose fit. Inspection of the rubber T and spacer on either brush end for cracking completes the brush assembly inspection. Examination of the belt follows. Turn it inside out and inspect for cracking or missing teeth. The belt should be replaced if these conditions are found. Next, disconnect the motor lead wires from the circuit breaker assembly. Cleanup of the base and other components begins with a thorough vacuuming. All strings and debris are removed from the brush roll. Utilizing the wire brush and spray cleaner, clean the brush roll thoroughly. Place all non-electrical components into dish detergent and warm water solution for cleaning. Then set aside and allow to dry. Inspection and cleaning of the power nozzle motor begins by removing the carbon brushes. The brushes should be replaced if 2/3 have burned away, or if 10% of the running surface is scarred. Be sure not to touch the ends of the brushes with your fingers, as oil can be detrimental to performance. Furthermore, lay out the brushes on the appropriate side for proper reassembly. Now, remove the tie bolt and separate the motor halves. Pull out the armature, vacuum, and clean the components. Please note to lay out the components in order to assure proper reassembly. Before reassembly, place 2 to 3 drops of 30-weight non-detergent oil in the bearings. When tightening the tie bolts, alternate sides. Tap the end of the shaft with a small hammer to realign the rear bearing. Then apply Loctite to the rear of the screws to prevent loosening due to vibration when the motor runs. If the carbon brushes are replaced, the motor must be secured in the base and run at 1/2 voltage for half an hour, utilizing the motor run-in cord and an additional cleaner. With the power nozzle motor reassembled, we now proceed to the canister inspection. First, we remove the top trim retainer screws. Now remove the top trim and place aside. The switch button is then removed, followed by the switch assembly retaining screws. Now, pull the switch assembly out of the body and examine the switch and lead wires. Spray the switch with electric clean to clean the contacts. Now reassemble the switch to the body and replace the retaining screws. Next, remove the 3 cord winder screws. Pull out the cord winder assembly. Examine the wire leads. Identify them for proper reconnect and place the cord winder assembly aside. To complete disassembly, stand the cleaner on end and remove the 4 motor hex nuts. Pull out the motor cover, placing it and the exhaust seal aside. Now pull out the motor and examine the wire leads and place the motor aside. Inspection and cleaning of the canister motor begins by removing the carbon brushes. The brushes should be replaced if less than 3/4 of an inch in length, or if 10% of the running surface is scarred. Next, we remove the fan cover retaining screws. The outer fan cover is then removed and placed aside. Holding the outer fan with a cloth, remove the fan nut and outer fan. The lower fan cover and finally the lower fan are removed and placed aside. Now clean the diffusers and fans with a small brush strip. To check for balance, place the fan on a screwdriver, blow air to spin the fan, and examine for the amount of wobble. If not true, the fan is out of balance and should be replaced. Motor disassembly is completed by removal of the 3 retaining screws, the fan end bracket, and the armature. To replace the fan end bearing, first drill out the rivets and remove with a 1/8 diameter punch and small hammer. Now place the retainer aside and remove the bearing. After cleaning the bearing pocket, insert the new bearing and locate the retainer into position. Insert screws with nuts and washers and then Loctite the rear of the screws to secure. To replace the commutator end bushing, first remove the top cap and felt pad. Now remove the bottom cap and spacer and place aside. To insert the new bushing, place it on top of the existing one and assemble the gear puller into position. Rotate the piston to press the new bushing in. When the arbor bottoms out, the new bushing is correctly located. Next, place a new felt pad into position. Apply 3 to 5 drops of 30-weight oil and secure the top cap. Finally, place a new spacer into position and install the lower cap. The motor is then reassembled in reverse order of disassembly. If carbon brushes are replaced, the motor must be run in at 1/2 voltage for half an hour. To run the motor in, connect it to one side of the motor run-in cord. The other side is connected to a second motor or vacuum. Plug in the cord and both motors will run at 1/2 voltage. The cord winder is inspected and cleaned next. First, remove the cord winder cover screws and place the cover aside. Next, examine the butterfly contacts and rings for discoloration and spring force. Then clean the contacts and rings and apply a petroleum jelly lubricant. To inspect the power cord, remove the reel from the cover. Now remove the reel cap retaining screws and cap to allow for a thorough inspection of the cord. Inspect the cord in the strain relief area and the cord exit point. After inspection, reassemble the reel to the housing and wrap the cord. Before reassembling the cover, apply 3 pre-turns to the reel and assure the locking pawl is in the left-hand position. Place the cover into position and drive the retaining screws. Finally, clean, wipe, and talc the cord. The outer housing and vinyl bumper are now cleaned to complete the cord winder inspection. Proceeding to the canister body, oil the caster and rear wheels. Remove the front cover assembly screws and pull away the cover. Remove the 2 control valve retainer screws, the dial wheel, and control valve assembly. Now disassemble the control valve and apply petroleum jelly lubricant to the black O-rings. Inspect the donut O-rings inside the barrel. If cracking exists, the control valve must be replaced. Also, inspect the piston travel to assure that it is not sticking and operates smoothly. The tube connecting the bracket assembly and automatic control valve is now cleaned. Also, clean the tube port in the bracket assembly with a small wire. Now inspect the bag lockout switch and electric hose contacts for discoloration and replace if necessary. Now reassemble the control valve and close the valve down. Align the timing marks with the dial. Reassemble the control valve and dial to the cover plate and drive the retaining screws. Finally, inspect the wiring and switch contacts. Then replace the cover and drive the retaining screws. We have now completed the canister and power nozzle inspection and will proceed to reassembly. Canister reassembly begins by connecting the motor leads and locating the motor inside the body. Next, install the motor cover, assuring the exhaust seal is located properly. Secure the motor and cover by tightening the 4 hex nuts. The cord winder is installed next. First, insert the power cord through the opening and connect the cord winder lead wires. Locate the cord winder into position and drive the retaining screws. Now place the switch button and top trim into position. Secure by driving the top trim retaining screws. The canister body cleaning is completed by highlighting the bumper lettering with a black marker. Power nozzle reassembly begins by placing the bearing block and pulley assemblies into the wood dowel. The brush roll assembly is then located into position in the base. Next, place the elbow assembly into position and secure. The circuit breaker and motor assembly leads are then connected and the components placed into position in the base. The motor retaining screws are then driven, checking to assure a proper belt tension of 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch deflection. Finally, locate the cover into position and turn the power nozzle over. Place the bottom plate on and drive the retaining screws. The power nozzle is completed by a final clean and wipe of the outside surfaces. The wand and sheath is then cleaned with a spray solution on the plated and plastic surfaces. Before the final high pot test, place a clean bag into the machine and turn on the switch. After the high pot test on the system, run it to assure reassembly. Place clean sweep chips into the bag and install a service sticker. Finally, place the canister into a plastic bag for the customer. This concludes the video training instructions for performing a canister system preventative maintenance. This is just an outline on the activities to be performed. The actual maintenance should take about 45 minutes to an hour. Contact your division service manager if a question on a specific unit needs addressing. Special thanks are extended to Service Managers Bill Thomas of the Bristol, Virginia branch and Ken Caldwell of the Hickory, North Carolina branch for their participation in this training session.